Good afternoon, everyone. BD from Bluestone Flagship Investor. Glad to have you guys here on our monthly webinar, and we actually have a great session for you today. But before we start, let's just cover some of the legal stuff. We can go to the next slide. Again, this is not an offering. Nothing here we are saying is uh, an investment advice or legal advice or tax advice. Again, we're pretty much take it and more as an educational purposes. And the goal here is to really kind of spread the learning and the knowledge. We have expert audience, that will come in and present. But from a Bluestone's flagship, we're not necessarily endorsing legally. These audience, they are entitled to their own opinions. Please check with, didn't get any further legal advice if needed. But we're really excited about what we have here for you. Next slide. A little reminder about Bluestone Flagship Investors. Again, we are an investment group. We focus on leveraging our network to getting the best opportunity from an investment that we like to invest. We apply our criteria of due diligence to make sure it actually fits our criteria of what we like to deploy our money. And once we negotiate for preferred return, we actually open up to our investors to invest alongside with us. Next slide. We're excited to actually have here Mr. Alan Pryor from Thrive Wealth Solutions. Alan, great to having you on board.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to present to your audience.
Yeah, and as you can see, he has a very long bio. But to start, thank you for your service as being, part of the course. It's great to have people like you supporting our country, and coming back and actually helping people figure out more financial things about their life. Um, would love to get a chance to, if you can give it a bit of a bio, or maybe that's already part of your presentation to the audience, and kind of kick off a little bit more about the topic for today, which is related really about scaling your legacy and really leveraging your legacy to actually scale it forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. Would you like me to go ahead and go to your last slide here, or just go ahead
What,
and start mine and again just dive in a little bit to the bio?
whatever you like.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, my bio's there, and your audience can read. I'm absolutely sure of that. You only work with the best of the best of the best. I'll just real quick. I went into the financial services industry probably in my late 30s because as a brand new dad, I was realizing there was a lot about money I didn't know, and the more I dove deeper into understanding how money works, most of your audience has probably heard of the Rule of 72, but just once I started learning basic principles. I realized that so many dads, just like me in the community, had a lack of knowledge with financial literacy, and it just became a passion to share what I was learning. And then when I realized I could actually, make it a career, it was just a seamless fit. So really, my life for the last, couple decades has really been just about learning more and more and more so that I can share as much as I can. It's not a one size fits all. It's not this shoe fits everybody. It's really understanding a person's circumstances and what tool works best in that situation. So, with that
Thank
said,
you.
BD, I'd
And
love to.
actually, just to add
Yeah,
on that, actually, that's one of the reasons when I first met Alan, we clicked in the first minute, because I love getting more knowledge and I love kind of expanding my horizon, and vice versa. And we had very complementing different knowledge bases, and we were just basically nonstop sharing back and forth from each other. So I do appreciate you coming here on board and kind of enlightening us in areas of your expertise. So thank you again.
my pleasure. Yeah, that we've had great conversations and many more ahead. So, what I'll do if it's okay is I'm just gonna slide my presentation into the screen. Does that work? And
Absolutely.
then I'm gonna go ahead and hit this button for present and perfect. How's everything looking there?
Looking excellent.
All right, let me just hit present and I think there we go. Perfect. All right, so we'll go ahead and start off. Pardon me. We'll go ahead and get started. And either you and I had a conversation of, hey, do we want to really drill down into a particular topic, or do we want to keep this at 10,000 feet and just kind of show a case study of an individual that's used several of these tools, for their maximum advantage? And so my intention today is really keep it at 10,000 feet. And then we'll go ahead and, maybe over the next several months or so, we'll go ahead and start. We'll start working through some of these topics, just drilling deeper into them. Is that fair?
Sounds good.
All right, excellent. Let me go ahead and get this queued up. And well, I don't know why that just disappeared on me, but that's okay. Technical
Not
difficulties. We
technical.
can
That
we
always
can
that's part of the problem all the time.
Here we go.
Excellent. We're back
Perfect.
online.
We're
Excellent.
back online. Excellent. Let me just see if my keyboard's going to be nice to me. If not, we'll use the mouse. And we're trying to advance and it's not being happy. There we go.
Here we go.
And now it wants to skip a couple times. Okay, so foundation of legacy. Okay, today we're going to discuss leverage, better loan strategies, and asset protection. I like to share with people, if you're going to work hard for your money should work hard for you. Okay. As you're making money, one of the things that is a person's biggest asset a lot of times is going to be the home they live in. And a lot of people, don't realize that there are better loan strategies that will allow them to pay that house off much quicker. And I think we can all agree that if we can pay the house off in 5 to 7 years versus taking all 30 years to pay it, we can save a lot of interest. Okay. And that's a big part of this. Now, I personally have been looking for the optimal loan strategy for the past 3 years. And then when I found this particular company that I could align with, it was just exactly what I was looking for. And so now we have a very, very cool seamless solution. And the last one that we're going to talk about, and we're not going to dive too deep into it, BD, we're going to talk about asset protection. Okay. And when I talk about that, it's really about showing somebody how they can have their assets protected from litigation and overtaxation. Those two things are really important. It's not so much, when I was young, I used to say, well, it's not what I make, it's what I can keep. And then once I had children and I was building my bloodline legacy, I realized it's not so much what I keep, it's what I can pass on to my heirs and charities. So to me, to have a full picture, we want to be very holistic. Hey, we want to have your money working hard. We want to take, let you pay as little interest as possible for any good debt that you've got, any debt period. And then we want to protect everything from frivolous lawsuits and overtaxation. So with that said, let me see if it'll be nice and advanced. Perfect. All right. So as I shared earlier, we're just going to take a snapshot of what I think represents a high net worth couple. And in this case, this is a real estate investor, has about, I think, 4 properties. And what you're going to see is that, at the very top, married couple, they've got 2 kids, one newborn, one 3 years old. Here in the Bay Area, I don't think this is really, a far-fetched, outlook for, a professional in our space. So 42 years old, 36-year-old right now. And as you can see here, the property count, I'm just going to talk about this for just a moment. The property count, what we're saying is this person has already started their journey in real estate, acquiring some properties and turning them into income producing properties and building a portfolio. In this presentation, I hope if you have not started that journey, you realize that it's very simple for you to get on that journey. And if you're already in it and successful, I hope that you see that there's a lot that we can do to help make your pursuit even more lucrative. Okay. So right here up top, we'll just go ahead and say, hey, 4 properties, 2 of them are free and clear. Total debt on all 4 properties right now is 1.66. Total equity, 5.4, almost 5.5. And then total years to pay off. Now, what I love about this solution is this is an individual that just this past year bought a property, and you're going to see that, it was at a very, very ugly interest rate. Okay. And then what our program was able to do for him. And then 30 years to pay off, we drop down here to net worth of about 7 million. Okay. Having, several different properties, that's not far-fetched. Current annual income for mom and dad, for husband and wife combined, is about 350,000. Okay. It's a good income in the Bay Area. Some people would say it's a low income. In Tennessee, they might say, oh my gosh, you're making bank. But this is the profile of the individual that we were working with. Came into my office, spent 2.5, 3 hours going through the strategies just to make sure everything was a good fit. And the reason why we actually chose him is because we were doing a presentation to a group of real estate investors, and this individual had the profile that fit about 80% of the room. So hopefully, if you're watching this, you're seeing yourself in this as well. All right. In orange here, again, keeping this at 10,000 feet. every single one of these topics I'm going to go over today, I could take 45 minutes to an hour to do a deep dive into them to really bring you into a high level of understanding. Today is really about giving you that oversight picture of, hey, what's possible, and be able to ask the question, hey, what might be possible for me? And it's that one-on-one interaction where I can go ahead and do a customized design for you. Myself, my team, totally prepared to do that to find out what fits best and what can get you to your goals even faster. All right, so the solution that we provided this person said that, hey, from 42 years old right now, we're going to have him retired at 65 years old. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking a snapshot here. Our retirement picture for this individual starting at 65 was 650,000 that grew to 2.7 million by the time they're 90. Now, does he need 2.7 million dollars in annual tax-free income at 90? Maybe, maybe not, but it's nice to know that there's not an inflation that we're going to experience that will knock him out of a good quality, comfortable life. 40-year liquidity. Now, just real quick, 40-year liquidity to us is saying, hey, if we're putting money into a program, how is our money growing? What's that liquidity look like? What can I put my hands on right now? And in this case, in the 40th year, obviously it's building up to it. I just took 40 years as a snapshot, was $28.6 million. Okay. How'd you like to make a decision that has your family's liquidity putting at 40 years, at the 40-year mark, almost 30 million? Now, estate death benefit. Okay. Now, estate benefit, you'll see here it says 30, 40, and 50. Again, I just took snapshots because this estate benefit is growing through time. Okay. And again, $80 million, at the 30-year mark, versus, 220 million at the 50-year mark for the family. That's an amazing situation. Okay. And as you can see here, I want to take a little bit of time to focus on this. His total outlay, the family's total outlay to put this together was less than $400,000. I don't know any professional period, let it be real estate or a stockbroker or somebody who's, real estate funds, investment funds. I don't know anybody that says, hey, putting 400,000, less than $400,000 aside and having a liquidity of 28.6 million, in 40 years. I don't know anybody that would call that a bad deal. BD, what do you think? Pretty good deal, right? All right.
Sorry, absolutely. I was on mute. Yeah, it is actually. I'll take that any day on.
Absolutely, absolutely, because you're a smart guy. Good looking guy too. All right. So some of you might have picked up that I said estate benefit, and you might have heard the word life insurance. Okay. And I bring that up because I want you to understand that 99% of the people who write life insurance policies have no clue how to do what I do, how to do what my office does, and do it right. There's something I like to say in my presentations. There's the Navy, and then there's SEAL Team 6. Okay, there's things SEAL Team 6 knows that the naval, officers and the sailors, young men and women that go into the Navy just aren't going to know because they haven't gotten that specialized training. So it's really, really important to work with somebody that has the experience, that knows how to design this and design this properly. Now, a lot of people, honestly, when they hear the word life insurance, there's a little thing that turns them, oh, life insurance agents are sleazy, and there's this negative, aspect of it. And I want to address something really quick because banks use life insurance. Banks have lots of money invested in life insurance. Now, life insurance is not an investment. As a licensed professional, I will never call life insurance an investment, but banks call it an investment because they're setting money aside for a rate of return. And so just for the fun of it, BD, when I look at all the banks, actually, let's just go with the top 10. If we looked at the top 10 banks, throw a guess out there about how much money they might have invested in life insurance.
No, maybe 3%, 2% of the reserves.
Give me a dollar. Give me a dollar amount.
Let's just say 50 million. No, actually, maybe 2 billions.
2 billion. I love it. And we didn't rehearse this. So, okay, so let's actually take a look. Let's go here to this next slide. Come on now. Okay, why are we not advancing? All right. How's 80 billion sound?
About
Now,
40x higher than what I thought.
A lot higher. See, most people, BD, your guess was a great guess. It was right in range with what I normally get. Okay.
Right.
And most people don't understand that banks are doing the classic do as I say, not as I do. If you walk into a bank right now and you say, hey, listen, I'd like to set up a retirement portfolio, they're talking to you about mutual funds and stock, dividend producing stocks and ETFs and all kinds of derivatives. What they're not going to say is, hey, let me talk to you about a cash value life insurance policy. There's obviously something they know that we don't know because when we hear life insurance involved with the financial picture, it's like, oh, it's just for estate planning purposes, right? Why would Bank of America have $24 billion in life insurance assets under them? Why would JP Morgan Chase have $12 billion? The top 10 just represents about 80 plus billion. What they do is cash value life insurance. What they recommend is everything else. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I think big part of it is almost like it's such a powerful tool, like a Ferrari, and then nobody really teaches you how to use it. Banks definitely know
Absolutely.
how to use it. And I think that's really
Yes.
kind of the difference with a lot of, agents that sell policies, don't really give you all the features and the capability that allows you to really get the maximum benefit out of it. And I think that's really what separates Alan when we first started speaking, because Alan wasn't just interested in providing life insurance, is really getting a more holistic approach and trying to understand what it can do for you based on your specific criteria. And that's something kind of, we'll dive in more. I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder here, Alan, but that's really what really draws us together when we first started speaking is like, wow, this is very different than what I've ever seen.
Absolutely. And brother, my thunder's your thunder, so take it away. All right. All right, very, very cool. So I just wanted to establish that because I want people to understand that there's a reason why banks use these policies and they use them right. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get this to advance. Now I'm going to talk about a concept most people have never heard of. It's called boomerang banking. How's a boomerang work? If you do it right, you throw it and it comes right back to you, right? Okay, we want to set up a life insurance policy that allows you to put money in, and 15 to 20 days later, you can take that money back out. This is how we create leverage. Okay, if you could put $100,000 into a contract and then take that $100,000 back out 15 to 20 days later and still earn money on it, that to me is arbitrage. So arbitrage to me, and for the purpose of our conversation, because we can dive deep and go into collegiate and exactly specifically what is arbitrage, but I like to use arbitrage in this conversation as if I can borrow money at 5% and put it somewhere and make 10%, I'm making 5% on somebody else's money. Is that a good, clean definition for our conversation?
I love it. And
Or
we actually, our investors are quite familiar with that concept, right? When we're buying property, they're producing 10% and we're leveraging from the bank at 5 or 6%, we're creating that arbitrage. So absolutely.
And what's beautiful is, and I'm glad you shared that. What's beautiful is there's not a lot of people have time in their day to go find these arbitrage contracts. And so you're going to find somebody that can do that. We can actually set up a life insurance contract to create that opportunity for you and let that interest compound annually for the rest of your life. That's how we build legacy. So that concept is what is the foundation for that solution I showed you just a moment ago. And so there's a question on there, what if we could do it over and over again? Now, I'm gonna bring this up real quick. I wasn't sure how to do a slide for this, BD, because I really wanted the ability to go ahead and walk people through it. Okay. So
Yeah,
what this
absolutely.
represents is this is an IUL, and this represents the family of four. Okay. Husband, wife, son, daughter. Okay.
So
And so what
Alan,
I
just
just,
for the audience
yeah.
clarity, IUL is definition.
Index universal life insurance policy. Okay. Most 99% of all IULs I have ever seen were crap. Agents are undertrained. They didn't know how to write it properly. And I'm going to tell you right now, most IULs are not good because they were from low-level operators. Okay. So what we do is quite unique. So an IUL, what I shared with you a moment ago was that if we had money in a bank account, we could draft it into the IUL, and then 15 to 20 days later, we could send it back. Does that make sense? All right. So
Absolutely.
now I want to talk about that because anybody who's worked with money, like you and your audience, knows that if you put $100,000 into an account and pull it out, there's no way it's going to make money. There's nothing left there to make money. Okay, so let's address that real quick. When money goes in as premium, it stays in this uninterrupted compound growth column. That means once it goes in, it's locked in as premium and it's going to continue to earn whatever the market is going to earn. Now we index it to the S&P 500. Okay, so I'm using an average return over this period of time of about 7%. Okay. Now the key to understand here is this money that's going back to your bank is not the money that you put in. This is the industry secret. This money that's coming out is coming from the insurance industry's reserve. There's $6.7 trillion in the insurance industry's reserve. 6.7 with a T, trillion. Now, the reason that is because insurance companies have to keep a 90% reserve. For every $100 that goes in, 90 has to stay in reserve. For every million that goes in, 900,000 has to stay in reserve. And the insurance commissioners in Congress and the attorneys general, they make that stipulation because this is an insurance company and these are insurance and annuity contracts. And if they take that money and invest it, and they invest it poorly, they can become insolvent very, very quickly. So it's a requirement for insurance companies to keep a 90%. Now, for the fun of it, I didn't queue this up, but we're going to do this because it is actually really fun. Meaning, if the insurance companies have to keep, liquidity have to be a 90% reserve, what percentage do you think banks have to keep?
I think it was 10%, isn't it?
Yeah, that it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the bank
So
bank get a 10x leverage, right, on every dollar that we deposit in, that they can go
that
out. We put in $1, they can go lend out nine or something, right?
that's the fractional reserve system. If you've ever read the
Exactly.
book, the Creature from Jekyll Island, there's a great analysis of what the fractional reserve system is. But what I want your audience to know is that insurance companies have to keep a 90% reserve. Banks have to keep a zero. March 26, 2020, banks went to a 0% reserve requirement. To me, that's ungodly scary. Okay. And I wanted your audience, and you can Google that. Just put in, when did banks go to a 0% reserve? It'll pop up for you. Okay. I just want your audience to be able to see that, yeah, there's a reason why banks are using life insurance policies to build their book of business, to build their strength and liquidity. Okay. All right. So now let's do this in real time. If you've got money, this is what I'm going to call a bucket. I should probably make that a bucket icon. But what I share with people is if you have a bucket of money and you can move that into your bank account, you can call the life insurance company, have it drafted into your policy. Now, with that as a leverage, you can borrow $100,000 from the insurance company. If you're earning an average of 7%, the cost is an average of 4%. The arbitrage is about 3%. Does that make sense? So
Makes a
now
lot of
you're
sense.
earning an average of 3% while it's sitting in your bank. And if you had leveraged this money from an IRA, from a money market account, from a line of credit, you simply send it back and you haven't depleted it, have you?
Nope.
Now, here's the magic. I love spicy food. If that was the poblano pepper, let's go ahead and take it up to the California Reaper, okay? This is how we build legacy exponentially faster and stronger. Because if we haven't depleted this bucket, we can now do it again for the wife's policy and send it back. We can now send it to the son's policy and send it back, and then to the daughter's policy. And if you happen to have a soccer team full of kids, it's okay. We can do it for them too, because we haven't depleted the bucket. Does that make sense? What if
Makes a
the
lot of sense.
100,000 was 200,000? What if it was 500,000? You see, we're going to build these instruments, these contracts to a strength that allows us to do much more than 100,000. Could it be 25,000? Could it be 50? Absolutely. BD, one of my favorite things is somebody will say to me, well, Alan, I don't have $100,000 in equity or anywhere. I've got about 25. Cool. Could we do 25 in January, 25 in February, 25 in March, and then April? That is the equivalent of 100,000. So really it's about meeting you, meeting your audience where they are to be able to build the best program they can have. Pretty cool.
Amazing.
All right, so I'm going to move that to the side because you see my next slide, if this is going to be kind to me as we try and advance. Okay, perfect. See, the next slide here is doing exactly what I was talking about. From the bucket, it goes out and then it comes back and then into the spouse's policy, into the child's policy. I just wanted to go ahead and have a really cool visual so that you could see we're using the same money over and over and over. You know, one of the things I love about working with real estate investors is they have a lot of times they have property. They're starting with one house and they get a really good equity position in that house. And then they use that to invest in the next property. Now they have two equity positions. They invest in more properties. What would it be? What would it mean if, I had an equity position of, six or $700,000, and before I bought the next property, BD, what if I put that couple $100,000 in five policies and then invested? I'm
That would
now
work.
leveraging, absolutely. I'm now leveraging money against that investment. And if that house loses value, I have money compounding annually in a contract in five contracts.
Yeah, and the beauty about this compounding is if that money in the saving account and it's earning interest, that's actually is taxable, correct, Alan? But I
Absolutely true.
believe the money in the policy, since it's under the umbrella of a life insurance, the growth isn't, to my understanding, isn't it?
You're very. I'm gonna say out of 5 stars, I'm giving you 4 3/4. Okay, so the
All right.
actual, yeah, right on target. The actual way to explain that is to say money like an IRA or a 401k, 403b, it's gonna grow tax deferred, but then on those accounts, when the money comes out, it's taxable. So we
Yep.
like to say that the IUL grows tax deferred and can be distributed tax free. And that's a huge difference. That is a huge difference. All right. All right, cool. So if this is making sense and feeling good, let's go ahead and go forward just a little bit more. All right. Again, I was just talking about
So
properties,
maybe,
right?
Alan, if we can maybe touch upon,
Oh, yeah,
okay, we got the concept of taking that 100,000 and cycling it through all the policies, but for the insured, for that family, what's really kind of the benefit when they're doing that? What is that result for them? Or maybe you're
perfect.
going to touch upon that a little bit later. It's okay if you do, but I don't want to disrupt your flow. But it'll be just good to kind of touch on the benefit.
This was the benefit right here. You see, we use so I basically said, hey, here's the winning ticket, here's what you get from it. And then I went back and explained how we were going to do it. So I'm so glad I probably, for the next presentation, I'll bring this slide back up so that I could just reiterate, hey, this is the how. Okay. By leveraging this money through 4 different policies, because it's mom, dad, and 2 children, right? By leveraging their liquidity through the policies, his annual income was 350,000. By the time he retires at 65, he's got $650,000 coming out of these policies tax free. That's growing to 2.7 million tax free annually.
Amazing.
His liquidity through the life insurance policies, his 40-year mark is almost $30 million because these are life insurance policies. Each one has its own death benefit. Each one of them has its own cash value. And the estate benefit, this is the death benefit to the life insurance policy. Year 30, he's got 80 million. By year 50, $220 million that would go to the family's estate, all for less than $400,000 of capital outlay.
This is incredible because this is really about thinking multi-generational, and really about protection and really about growth and tax efficient growth and tax-free distributions and wow, it kind of hits all the marks there of all the
Yes,
things
it
that we would
does.
like to see.
I've
And
had,
it's and
go
it's
ahead.
very different than anything else I've seen in this domain. It's really how to leverage these tools that you have in your arsenal, because probably some of the listeners might already have life insurance and don't realize these are the things that they're missing on it because it's probably either not structured well or they're not really using it well. Just having the Ferrari in the garage and not really knowing how to drive it isn't gonna get you the joy you're gonna get running it on the track.
I love that analogy, and I'll expand if I can expand on it a little bit. It's like, yes, let's just say you do have the right life insurance policy. It's that Ferrari, but you're just using it to go pick up milk at the grocery store. Okay.
I love that.
All right. Or you thought you bought the Ferrari, but it was a kit car. Under the hood, it's not a real Ferrari. There's some
Ouch.
things going on in the
Ouch.
industry. Okay.
Ouch. That hurts.
So I love that analogy. Thanks for sharing that. So this was the solution that's provided by properly using a properly structured life insurance policy. Pretty cool.
Wonderful.
All right. So now what I want to do is I want to talk about mortgages. Okay. So the first part was about leverage. It doesn't matter if you're a buy and hold strategist or if you're a fix and flip strategist. If you're going to put $100,000 into a fix and flip, why not flow it through your policies and then go put it into that fix and flip? And when the money comes back, you put it back in your policy, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can do that. One of the things I love about leverage is some of my clients, they're not properly structured and they don't know, cost seg and all these cool things that we can do, and they're not there yet, and they've got a huge tax bill. And so what a lot of them will do is they'll say, well, I've got let's just say 100,000 to keep it even, $100,000 tax bill. Why not put it through the policies and then go pay Uncle Sam? Go pay the state. It's a lot easier to pay 100 grand tax bill when you know it's going to compound annually for the rest of your life as premium in the uninterrupted compound growth column. So contractors have to buy backhoes, or their electricians, have electrical or plumbing company, they got to buy vans. What would it be like if that expense could flow through the policies and then go off to where it's got to be? Now you're converting expenses into an income stream. Is that not the coolest?
That is pretty cool.
It's all about leverage. You have to have a properly designed IUL to go ahead and leverage. Okay. And somebody might have heard, well, can you use whole life for this? Oh, there's a different strategy that we use whole life for. Just understand, I'm not a purist to IUL or purist to whole life or term. I'm a purist to what's the right tool for your situation. Okay. All right. So let's talk mortgages. I probably about 2007, 2008, when the housing market crashed, I became so anti-bank and mortgages. To me, it was a legalized racket. Because here's what I saw. I saw people were paying into their house for 12 to 15 years, sometimes 18 years, and then something would happen. They'd get laid off, a medical condition, something like that. They didn't have the savings, and now all of a sudden they lose their home. They paid faithfully into the house for 15 to 20 years, and now they're losing their home for conditions that they had no control of. Okay. And when the housing market crashed, it's never been more prevalent. And so I hated the fact that we would enter into these 30-year, fixed, agreements with the bank. And if something went wrong, they held all the chips. And so I had been looking for a better mortgage solution. And I want to talk to you about that here, because I want you to see that this person has a property count, 4 properties, again, 2 free and clear, total debt 1.6, total equity 5 point. Look at that equity. And because he just bought the house, he has 30 years left to pay on it. Okay. All right. So let me show you what we were able to do. And again, I don't think I'm going to use this to present anymore. All right. Under our program, when he got this house, he got it last year. He's self-employed, so he didn't get a good W-2 income rate. He's got a 10% rate on $1.6 million. Okay. We were able, with our strategy, with his circumstance, we are able to get him out of debt in less than 5 years. Instead of paying on a 30-year note, we were able to structure his loan terms to where he gets out of debt in less than 5 years, 25 years faster, and we saved him over $2.5 million in interest. Now, in doing this, because you see, we gave him the choice. Remember that solution I showed you in the beginning where he had 650,000? If we combine that solution with this solution, his income goes to $1 million tax-free annually instead of 650. You see, I love chocolate and I love peanut butter, but when you put them both together, you get a Reese's peanut butter cup, baby. And I love me a Reese's peanut butter, especially I put it in the freezer for about a day or two. Okay. So when you take 2 really good things and put them together, that's when you get the synergy. And that synergy is where we get this compounded effect and benefit for our clients. Do you have to do the mortgage to get the insurance? No. Do you have to do insurance to get the mortgage? No. But when you put them both together, it creates an incredible opportunity. Now, if that's making sense, let's just talk a moment about equity. If this person had $1 million in equity, could I flow some of that through these policies like I talked about? I could simply take $100,000 or $200,000, put it in the policy, send it back to the equity. Then I can put it to the next and put it back in the equity, right? And as the equity position grows and the policy becomes stronger, that 200 become 400 or 500. Again, we're just leveraging money. Does that make sense? So
Makes
that's
a
what
lot of sense.
happens. Go ahead.
No, no, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes my clients dollars too. All right, let's see here. Is it gonna let me go forward? And interesting. All right. Can I click here? Okay, cool. Maybe I can do that. All right, cool. I think I found the shortcut to, all right. Now, I didn't put this slide together. The real estate agent who I work with to work through these investor groups, she put this together. All right. So I'm going to try and read this one. Capital unlocked was 2 million because what happens is because this is a line of credit, once you pay off the debt in 5 years, you have access to the full line of credit, right? It's just like a credit card. If you have a $50,000 balance, you spend 30,000, and as soon as you pay off that 30,000, you're back to $50,000 line of credit. Okay. So has a total of $2.4 million in capital. We're going to be conservative and only redeploy 1.5 to 1.6. In other words, we're now taking freed up capital and redeploying it into the real estate market. Right now, listen, that could be cryptos, it could be silvers. I like talking to clients about precious metals, and we can get into that one day. I think silver is going to be a great play. But then what we're saying is that the liquid capital, obviously we're keeping over $500,000 right around there in reserve. The buying power that's created is 5 to 5.3 million, just saying we're going to put 30% down. You see, what I love about this is I can show somebody how to pay that house off quicker or pay multiple properties off at once. Or what we say is, hey, if I already have 2 or 3 income producing properties, that money that I'm freeing up, instead of paying off those other income producing properties, let's just acquire more properties. It's all about the circumstance and how aggressive a person wants to be. The fact is they have options makes me feel real good. All right. So I couldn't tell you, maybe you know what the target cap rate is, but she said 6 to 7%. And anything that is made on this real estate is outside of the $1 million in tax free that we had already talked about. Is this picture getting better and better?
Yeah, it's just basically you're speaking also to real estate investors where a lot of our audience are, and just basically showing them different ways how to really leverage their equity, through this lending strategy.
And you have a great platform for them to do it with. So I love the fact that we get to work together. All right. So just to sum that up, hey, if you've got a more advantageous loan program, you build equity faster, you save tons of money. In this case, listen, I'll be honest with you, that was the highest amount that we've ever projected in savings, and it was because he had a 10% interest rate to start with. Okay. Normally, typical, we're saving somebody 100, 200, sometimes $300,000 in interest. Of course, it's not 2 million, but $300,000 in interest that you don't have to send to the bank. That's still a win in my department. Okay. And then we're showing redeployment of that capital. Pretty cool.
It is.
Uh, so I'm going to wind down and wrap up with this because I'm watching the clock for us. We talk about irrevocable trust. Now, I want to take a moment and, a lot of people say, well, I have an irrevocable trust. It's a family trust. And I just want to let your audience know that a living trust starts off as a revocable trust. And when they pass, it instantly becomes an irrevocable trust. Now, there's 2 things I want to note there. A living trust is just an alter ego. There is no protection if you get a lawsuit because, they're going to say, well, that's you. It's just your trust. All that living trust does is it gives you control of your assets from the grave. It says, hey, when I pass, this is what's going to happen. The real value is you avoid probate. In California, it's like $87,000 just to start probate. So, hey, yeah, I think it's okay to start a living trust for, three and a half, $5,000. Okay. So that's one thing. It's not going to protect you from lawsuits. Okay. The other thing is this: there's a common misnomer because of that word irrevocable associated with a family or living trust. They think, well, if I get an irrevocable trust, I can't make changes. Now, we use a very special irrevocable trust that has an EIN associated with it, which means it's an entity. So, just like an LLC, a person can change officers, they can buy and sell property and assets and so forth. In an irrevocable trust, you can change the officers, the beneficiaries, and you can buy and sell assets. Does that make sense?
No, it
Okay.
does. It does. It definitely need that people get scared when they hear the word irrevocable and they don't understand that there's so many different types of trust and how could it be structured is very
Yes.
particular about the uniqueness of the situation. But just because it's irrevocable doesn't mean it's not changeable.
Absolutely. Absolutely true. So what I'm going to do, and I'm not, again, we're going to keep it at 10,000 feet. I could talk about this one I could talk about for several hours. The Supreme Court case, Elliott versus Freeman, okay, not subject to legislative control. Basically what that means is it falls under contract law. All right. If the trust is written, again, within the accordance of actual laws, okay, IRS code, stuff like that, we can't say, hey, my trustee is allowed to go shoot somebody. No, you're going to jail. Okay. So as long as it's legal and upheld in court, you can go ahead and tell the trustee they're allowed to do things and they're allowed to execute on it. Okay. Now, this one right here is really important to me. Trust protection. So let's have fun for a second, real quick. BD, you're gonna have to help me out. You're gonna have to reach the screen. Let's say that you and I go out to celebrate a huge win for your client base, your flagship Bluestone flagship Bluestone invest. Sorry,
Bluestone Flagship Investors.
Bluestone flagship investors. Okay. I just noticed BD is like you're like Oz. Okay. So let's say we go to celebrate a huge win, a huge investment. Okay. And you're having, your lime water and sparkly, right? And I say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna have a few of these mudslides. Okay. And so I want to do the responsible thing. I want you to hold on to my keys for a second. Can you reach through and take my keys?
All right.
Okay, perfect. Okay, you got my keys. Thank you. Now let's say that one of our friends, Way, I owe him some money. He's driving down the road. He sees my car in the parking lot, and he says, "You know what? I'm gonna go get Alan's car, and I'm gonna hold it till he pays me back." Okay. And so he walks in and he looks at me, and says, "Hey, Alan, give me your car keys." And I'm gonna look at him and say, "Look, I don't have my car keys." And he's like, "Well, who's got your car keys?" BD's got my car keys. Now, when he comes up to you, BD, and says, "Hey, I need you to give me Alan's keys," are you gonna give him the keys?
No,
No. Why not?
because they're not mine to give. I can only give it back to you.
Because I
Yeah,
trusted you with my keys.
correct.
It's not your property to give away. So, what I want your audience to understand: a properly structured spendthrift trust has protections to it that have been upheld in court time and time again. What it says is the assets go into the trust, they're held by the trustee just manages it. So you, BD, or someone in your audience, you can put your houses in there. You can put the profit from your business in there. You can put your cryptos and everything like that. Now the trust is the caretaker and holder of it. If you happen to get into an accident or get accused of something and you lose a lawsuit, you own nothing, but you control everything. They can't take it away from you. They can't tax it from you if you don't own it. So by moving the assets into the trust, the purpose of the trust is to provide for beneficiaries. You, the trustee, have the responsibility of growing the assets of the trust. Now, I want you to think as we wind down here. If the purpose of this conversation was to tell an audience we can use specially designed contracts and other investments to create massive generational wealth, we can show you how to take properties, get a better loan position, mortgage terms, to create advanced access to equity. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars. Why wouldn't you want your assets and your liquidity locked behind a force field of a spendthrift trust? Does that make sense? This was a third component when we started. So I wanted to go to this because anybody who's an investor, like bro, BD, I've had CPAs and enrolled agents and tax attorneys tell me, oh no, this doesn't work. And I just tell them, I say, you know what? It's okay. I have lots of tax strategies. I'm just not going to let you do these tax returns because you don't have the experience. Let's face it. If you needed to go in for you or someone you love need to go in for a cardiac surgery, would you go to a neurosurgeon for a second opinion?
Nope.
Not even if they were top in the country, right?
Correct.
So I share with people, if you want to talk to a professional about trust structure, taxation, litigation, all that, you need to talk to somebody who's been doing it for decades. Because if they're not qualified to give you advice, they're going to lead you astray and you're going to lose. Because you see, all I did is I pull up this section 643A3, and you can go subsection 47 and B. Distributed net income for trust and estates specifies that capital gains are excluded. Did you hear that? Capital
Yep.
gains are excluded if allocated to corpus and not distributed. Ordinary and taxable stock dividends, I'm not going to read the rest. But what I want you to understand is that real estate investors have an exposure to capital gains. There's lots of ways to mitigate taxes, but I just want you to understand that in a trust, this is one of the special functions that I particularly love about this trust, is that if I buy a property for $100,000 and I sell it into the trust, and I then later sell it for $2.1 million, there's a $2 million capital gains exposure. But when that money comes in, I simply allocate it to corpus. Corpus is the investment body of the trust. Remember, I mentioned the 401k and the IRA? The government doesn't tax the growth, they tax the distributions, right?
Correct.
So in this case, by allocating that growth to corpus, we're saying, hey, I'm going to reuse this for more properties. I'm going to reuse this for some crypto. I'm going to reuse this to buy another business. So until the distribution is made, there are no taxes due, and therefore we get to defer taxes indefinitely. And that is a huge win. Instead of paying $500,000 to 700, $750,000 in taxes, we get to hold on to that and reinvest it and keep reinvesting. How much faster could we grow generational wealth if we had that on our side?
That is really fascinating, Alan. Just so I can maybe, give an example and maybe more of a question, and you can maybe confirm my thinking. Effectively, taking an asset, putting it into the irrevocable living trust under corpus, whether you sell it and you realize capital gain, it's not taxable as long as it stays within corpus, is
You
what
know
you're saying.
what? Again, out of 5 stores, you get 4 3/4, brother. Okay. The only thing that was different is when you move assets into the trust, you're not necessarily moving it to corpus, you're just moving the asset there. We don't necessarily need to assign something to corpus, like assets, okay, to corpus until there's a capital gain exposure. The trust is just holding the asset until then. Once it is sold, then it becomes a taxable event. And how we address those taxes is to allocate it to corpus. So you were real close.
Wow. Okay. So, I bought some older NVIDIA stocks and in the future I want to sell them. Hey, let me bring them into my revocable trust. And right before I take on a taxable thing, which is selling them, and taking the capital gain, I allocate them into corpus and basically transact at that point. Is
Again,
what
you're real close. Not the revocable, but the irrevocable. This would be an
irrevocable.
irrevocable trust, but you're
Irrevocable.
exactly right. We're going to take
Correct.
those assets, we're going to sell them into the trust. They're not donating because donating is a different structure. But if I sell them to the trust for what it cost me, because what it cost me was after tax discretionary income, right? I used after tax discretionary income. So that was the basis. If I sell it to the trust at basis, then anything above that would be the capital gain.
And once assigned to corpus, that would actually get remediated. Beautiful. Wow. We definitely have to bring you in, Alan, just to talk about this irrevocable trust because I'm sure everybody's going to have a great
Abs-
time just on that one. And probably another session just to talk about the whole HELOC strategy. I mean, honestly, this is just insane amount of wealth of knowledge that you're sharing here with everybody. And, I get excited every time I speak to you about it, even though it's not my first time hearing it. I just get to understand it better and better.
Bro, this is why we're going to stay young because we love what we do. We absolutely love what we do. So I put this on the screen. You know Denise, and this is we had a conversation one day. We were preparing for a podcast, and she says there's no single financial product that magically solves your problems. It's principles that solve problems. And I just want you and your audience to know that this is the approach that we take every single day. What's your relationship with money? What are the chapters you want written after you're, in heaven and looking down on us? Okay. What charities do you want to have going on? Is it a wing at a hospital? Is it backpacks or shoes or a new suit for a kid's interview or something like that? We want to talk about the legacy because for the first time, a lot of people are seeing access to legacy and their hearts start getting huger and they start thinking, well, how can I do that? And our team is going to look for the very best tools to implement. It might not be this one. It might not be a few of the things that we talked about here, but there are tools that can get them there. So it's a holistic approach to say, let's talk about the principles, your alignment with money, what money needs to do. You know the word risk aversion, right? What do we need to put together so that you can reach your goals? So at the end of it, this is what I don't know if you're a beach person or not, okay, but I saw this and I thought, this is how I want my life to be. I want to be sitting there as the couple, towards the back, towards and looking at my kids with their family, knowing that the legacy that we've put together for them can never be depleted. That they have more money than they can ever spend, and that the rest of their life is really about living passionately and giving money away. When you can live a lifetime of giving, to me, that's how you live longer. Stress is gone, happiness is abundant. And that's where we want to use these tools to bring people into that space. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I think I have your slide right back here.
No, actually, we can go back to your slide, Alan. I think
Okay.
everybody knows how to reach me, so no need for that. But uh, thank you for the insight. Probably maybe in the last few minutes, what would be some departing messages and ideas you want to give to our guests, and what would be some of the best ways for them to reach out for you and learn a little bit more about these particular strategies as well as what's right for them? Because again, not one shoes fit all. This needs to be really designed for every person based on their unique situation. And but truly, I mean, these are super powerful tools. And again, they don't fit everybody, but for some people, it actually can help them scale a lot faster.
Perfect. I love that. So we'll keep in the same sequence that we presented. So when it comes to life insurance, let's face it, the older you get, the more expensive life insurance is. Okay. Two schools of thought. If what I shared about how the life insurance performs has your attention, please scan the QR code that's on the screen and let's set up a time to do an evaluation of what you already have. We'll identify what's working, what might not be working, what could be working better. Okay. We want to do that sooner than later because the older we get, the more we're exposed to our environment, generally speaking, the unhealthier we get. So I absolutely want to be able to attack that solution very, very quickly. Okay. And on that, I will also say, if there's a thought of, oh, I've got to bring this, Alan was talking about $100,000, I've got to bring this to the table. No, I work with multimillionaires and I work with single moms and dads that are teaching music at high school. Okay, I've shown somebody who is putting $500 to $700 a month away, how that generated $1 million in tax-free revenue for their children's retirement, each of them. Okay, so it's not really about what you might think needs to come to the table. It's just, hey, we're going to meet you where you are. I don't care if it's $500 a month or $50,000 a month. Wherever you are, we do a custom design to make it fit. Okay. Now, closing that one out and going to the mortgage. When it comes to the mortgage, I'll just throw this out there. It takes me 5 minutes to review these 8 data points to see if it's going to be, if you're going to qualify, if it looks like it could be a good program. Just in general, and I might do a slide for this next time, BD, but just in general, you've got to have over a 680 credit score. Okay. If you have over a 4% mortgage or an arm that's coming due, a lot of people, they did these arms and now they're coming due in a lesser environment. Okay. Less attractive, although rates are going in the right direction. I love that. If you have an arm or a 4% or higher mortgage, if your net cash flow monthly is 20% positive or more, In other words, you're making 10, but you're living on 8. You're making 10, you're living on 5. If you have a 20% or higher net positive monthly, again, can be a great situation. Okay. You need about 20% equity in your home. And I'll share with you on the mortgage part, not everybody qualifies, BD. But for those that do qualify for it, man, they get a phenomenal impact to their financial picture. So if when you set an appointment, that's just going to be a 30-minute call just to go ahead and kind of gauge what direction you want to go. And then I would say, okay, great. If we're going in the insurance direction, this is the information I'd need. If we're going into the mortgage direction, let's start here. I'll share with you the 8 data points. And again, 5 minutes, I'll know if it'll work or not. When it comes to the trust, I'll be honest with you, that conversation is usually peripheral to the previous conversations. A lot of people, the trust, the irrevocable trust, that can be upwards of $30,000 or $50,000 to implement. And so before we implement that, we want to make sure that's the right strategy. That's going to be a deeper conversation. Maybe we do an irrevocable trust. Maybe we do a tax advantage corporation, setting up a DAF, donor advice fund. There's different ways to handle that, but we would want to have that conversation once we're very clear on what it needs to do. I'll tell you that a lot of people might not be, they're ready for everything else, but they're not ready for that irrevocable trust. And so we start a living trust so that we can avoid probate because that's responsible. And then we go ahead and we let these products build money, cash value to purchase the irrevocable trust. Which is, I mean, how much better can you, great, you put the life insurance policies in place, you get the equity into the house, now you've got $50,000. It makes sense now to protect your assets like that. So does that help?
Beautiful. No, very well put together, Alan. Thank you for just providing a lot of wisdom here for all of us. And we definitely look forward for having you again to dive into more topics.
Thank
And
you.
for the audience, please, if you resonate with a lot of the elements that Alan has shared with us today, please feel free to reach out for him. I constantly at least speak to Alan about once a week, and we meet at various different situations. But again, Alan, thank you for your time and for all the knowledge that you disseminated today. We'll look forward to having you on further sessions.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.